Hi there. Thanks for listening to Out of the Heart podcast. In this episode of Zoom Out, I had the incredible privilege of leaning into the wisdom of Pastor Craig Johnson. Pastor Craig is one of the leading pastors on staff at Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas. Pastor Craig and his family have an incredible story of hope in light of raising a son who has autism and how God is using them to minister powerfully throughout the globe with the beautiful heart, vision, and ministry of Champions Club. I was so inspired by this episode, and I was so encouraged, and I know that you will be too. So Craig, I'm so glad that you are on this chat with me today. Thank you so much for giving me the time.
It's an honor to be with you.
Thank you. I have known you for a couple of years now. You have been in Sweden a couple of times, and your family has birthed a beautiful and important ministry in the earth. It's not just within the States, it is a global ministry, and it's a very unique ministry. And I just want to ask you if you just share about that ministry and how that was birthed and how it came to be what it is today.
Yeah, it really started with our son. When he was probably about 2 years old, where he was speaking to us and where he was interacting with us and where he would play with other playmates. All of a sudden that shifted. And so now he would play by himself. He would show very little emotion whatsoever, and he stopped speaking altogether. And so it was very traumatic, and we were like a lot of parents when you get a diagnosis or you find out that your child may have autism or a certain type of special needs. It was very traumatic. Just what do I do? How do I develop them? How do I respond? Some parents still with a lot of denial. They had a vision and a picture for their child of what it was going to be. And when that gets shifted, it's really traumatic. And I remember back at that time, we had just came to Lakewood. So it was a very crazy time on that end because God was really doing a lot of things. And then on the other end with our family. So it was almost like a perfect storm. And so through that, we just, I tell people this all the time, but I tell them, you only have grace for a day, and you can't worry about 2 weeks or a year from now. And so we just took every day, with Connor and tried to make it the very best we could and try to develop them. And, along that journey, everything we would try to do, Michelle, it just got worse. Some things got worse, the meltdowns, different things like that. And then I remember, and you've heard this story before, but I remember driving, to work one day after he had a terrible meltdown. He's probably 5 years old. And I just asked God why. And God just spoke to me and he said, Craig, your child's not a burden, your child's a gift. And I said, God, I understand, but we're trying everything. And he's struggling so much. And God said again, Craig, your child's not a burden, your child's a gift. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you're looking at everything that's wrong with him. You're not looking at everything that's right. And I said, God, but we're trying. And he said, Craig, I'm going to use your son to reach millions of people. And I remember during that time, I really couldn't see it. And I remember picking up a bottle of water and I just asked God, I said, God, my son can't even ask for a drink of water. How's he going to reach millions of people? And then, I share this a lot, but God just spoke 4 words to me. He still speaks those 4 words to me when I'm coming up against a difficult time, kind of like what the parents are facing right now. He just said, do you trust me? And, I just said, you're all we've got. And after that happened, just to get to what we do with Champions Club, after that happened, Connor, about 3 months later, had a miracle where he spoke his first words, and it was a spiritual declaration. And that went kind of viral around the world. And then really how Champions Club got started, it was probably, I don't know, within a year of that time after that miracle. I was walking through Champions Club and God just stopped, or walking through Lakewood, And I was right next to the children's area, and God just stopped me and said, Craig, look what you're doing for typical kids. He said, looks like Disneyland, but look what you're doing for special needs kids. And God just said, Craig, those kids deserve the very best, just like every other child. And so to make a long story short, for an entire year, we worked on what would become the Champions Club. It's a holistic approach, mind, body, soul, and spirit. So there's 4 stations, and we develop the kids just like every other child. And now we're moving towards 100 Champions Clubs around the world now. Wow. And they're in everywhere. And so, yeah, you know, I say, you know, little did I know when I got that diagnosis, we might become someone else's best hope. Yeah. And that's how God works things, doesn't he?
Yeah, yeah. I want to come in and ask you a question, but I want to give a story. I myself have an official diagnosis on my older son, and now we're going through the process for our younger son who came to us through the foster system. And I never, ever in my life imagined that I would raise a child with special needs. And your second visit to Sweden, I don't think I have said this to you before, but when you first came to our church for the first time, I sat at the sound desk and listened to you for the first time, and I sobbed. And I was like quietly sobbing. I couldn't pull myself together. And I think that I was sobbing because deep down I knew that this was the journey that we were about to go on. And I just think that had you not come at that time, I don't know if I would have been set up well to enter this season and to enter motherhood in a completely different capacity than what I thought. I feel like God knew that I needed to hear Connor's story because I needed to see what hope looked like before I walked through getting a diagnosis. And if I had not seen what hope looked like, I think I'd be a mess still trying to grab myself. And so after that weekend, when you and Sam left and went back, I said to my husband, Joseph, now it's time to get Jeremiah looked at. Now we have to get on the same page, because we weren't on the same page. Now we have to get on the same page and get him looked at. Can you tell me, or tell those of us that are watching and listening, what does hope look like? What does it look like? I know for all of us, but what does hope look like for a family with special needs? Because I feel like we can start to walk this journey and feel like we're not allowed to grieve because we're Christians and we love Jesus and everything's a blessing. What does hope look like?
I think for a family with special needs, what hope looks like is that their child has a purpose, that their child has a destiny. Because when you get that diagnosis, you know, not only does the enemy attack, but you have other people that are going to label your child on what they're going to become. And we do have a dream for our kids when we start out. And, you know, we have great aspirations for them. And then you get that diagnosis and you go, well, man, all these dreams must be shot. And so, you know, I remember when I was sitting in the car and I got that diagnosis, I remember the enemy just would speak to me and say stuff like, your child's not going to be like your other kids. He's going to be worthless. He's never going to do anything in life. And so when I decided that day to trust God, when I decided that day where I was overwhelmed, where I felt like there wasn't a lot of hope, but I just said, I trust you. And I think that's the first step, is that you've got to say, I trust you, God, for my child's destiny. I trust you for my family's destiny. I put this in your hands. That's the first step that we did to finding hope. the next thing that happened was, now you've got to live it. You got to put that into action, right? It can't be just something you're saying or you're praying. You've got to put that into action. So we begin to pray that. We begin to pray it. We begin to speak God's word over it. And we begin to put that into action. If you just sit there, pretty soon the belief kind of goes away.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying. So you've got to put into action. You've got to be intentional and every day. And that's what we did for our son. We intentionally would pray. We intentionally would speak the word. And it comes in different forms. Sometimes it could be a big miracle. Sometimes, and that's probably less. That happens less than other times. Sometimes it's going to be just a word or something shifts, or it's those little things, and you grab those little things, and you know God's working. And then I think once we begin to say, I trust you, and we saw God begin to do something through our son, right? Then it was, oh my goodness, there's hope. Now, and then I think the second thing that you do that's so important, and we've talked about this before, is the fact that if you want as a family, what's going to happen is you're going to become victimized by it. Every family does. You'll not get away from feeling like a victim because you never planned it. So you're going to feel victimized by it. But how you move from victim to victor is when you start being good to someone else.
Wow.
And so we had to do those two things. We had to trust God, and then grab that hope when we got it. And then we had to say, okay, I'm not going to just grab it for us. I'm going to give hope to someone else.
Wow. I love that. Craig, when you came back to Sweden for your third time, when we started Champions Club, I came to you. Had been with some of us leaders, and I came to you and I told you we'd officially got a diagnosis for Jeremiah. We've been to Lakewood. We've looked at Champions Club. It's amazing. It's really, really awesome. But you said something to me. It wasn't much, but you said something that has absolutely, it's been engraved. As soon as you said it, I was like, that's the mentality that I'm going to have as a mother. You said to me, Michelle, you guys are going to see the miracles that no one else gets to see. And as a mum, that kind of just, in that moment, I just let go of all competitiveness. I was like, okay, I don't need to compete. I don't need to compare my son with other people. He's who he is, and I'm going to see everything that I possibly can. I'm going to have a front row seat to miracles. And they can be small miracles that mean the world. They can be big miracles. I don't care. I just want to have a front row seat to that. That has been such a pivotal ground for both Joseph and I, just those little words that you said. And I love what you're so concrete about hope and what that looks like. When we were in Houston visiting you guys for the week, you were talking about something that really moved me, that I just think, particularly in this area, is so important. You talked about living as healers. Can you elaborate on that? Because it gets me every time.
Yeah, I believe that God doesn't just call us as parents, that we're parents, we're leaders, but I believe God is calling us to be healers. And there's healing in our hands. There's healing in our voice. We're a container filled with God. And right now, we have the ability to be full of encouragement. That container can be full of encouragement, or full of mercy, or full of restoration, or full of healing. And everywhere we go, we should be a dispenser of the goodness of God. You know, if you get around me, you better get ready, because I know what I deal with.
Yeah.
You know, I know what my family deals with, but you know, what we've learned in being a healer is that when you're good to someone else, it gives you a different perspective on your storm.
Mm.
You look at it differently. And then people start helping you. And if you get around me, you know, you're going to find out the first thing I'm going to turn to is you're going to be encouraged.
Mm. Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
you're going to be encouraged. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that I don't feel hurt or I'm not dealing with the same things, but I think what's happened when you become a healer is you learn to move from strength to strength. You don't look at your brokenness the same way anymore. You know, so I always say this, you know, some people look at brokenness as something that needs to be fixed, but God looks at brokenness as someone ready to be used.
Wow.
And I believe brokenness has a perfume that pride can never produce.
Yeah.
And that's the power of our kids. You know, they will surprise you. You know, I call them ordinary miracles. You know, we see things that most people never see that might be ordinary to somebody else. That would be a miracle to us. But it's that point of saying, I'm not just going to live with this. I'm not going to just get through it. I am going to touch someone else along the way. And some of us, God will call, it'll be a bigger thing. And some of us, it'll just be reaching out to our friend, you know, reaching out to a family. It might be one family that you're constantly encouraging and healing, you know. And so for me, I think sometimes you may have to trade places with someone else who is hurting, and you must be willing to be inconvenienced, you know, to do that. But the payoff is huge, especially for a special needs parent, because I think when you become a healer of somebody else, that's when God brings healing to you.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, it's true. You know, I come from a broken family, but when I spent 2 years in Los Angeles at the Dream Center. And when I came to the Dream Center, I was in process still. I still am. But I remember after about 3 months of living at the Dream Center, someone came to me and said, you know, you're not so angry anymore, Michelle. And I kind of reflected on that a bit, and I was like, yeah, it's true. Focusing on other people's needs has done a great deal in me. There's when I have been taking my eyes off me, God has just come in and naturally filled in those broken, hurting areas and done a shift, done a change. So I believe it. I believe it when we take our focus and put it somewhere else, that God kind of comes in and meets us as well. It's cool.
And the truth of it is, even today, even with all the stuff that goes on, I still get down. I still struggle with things. You know what the first thing I do when I get down or I struggle? I call somebody or I text somebody and I try to encourage them. Or I'll go out and serve in some way. Or I'll put something online. And it's not just for the people, it's for me.
Yeah.
And it changes how I feel. It changes because what happens with depression, what happens with when you're dealing with anxieties, it's all focused on you.
Yeah.
It's really, how do I get out of this?
Yeah.
And the way that I've learned to get out of it is to be good to someone else.
Yeah. It's true. You have been on this journey for a lot longer than I have. And I know that you and Sam, you have struggles, and I get that it's never over. But you are one of the most encouraging people on the planet. Like, I would never think that you go through fights and struggle within yourself and stuff. How do you, I know that you encourage others, but how do you and Sam navigate those good days and bad days? Because I think some days can be really up here and then some days can be really down here. How do you navigate that as a couple, as a family?
Well, you know what I teach as a leader. You know the number one thing I teach is devotional life. And I think everything flows out of it. Jesus didn't come to be served. He came to serve. And yet we don't allow him to do that. So what we do is we carry things, and so all God ever really wanted was us. He didn't want us to do all these things. He wanted us first, and then he wanted to do those things through him, you know, through so that he would get the credit. And I believe this: everything flows out of your devotional life. One of my favorite sayings is your devotional life will dictate your emotional life.
Yeah.
How you look at things, how you view things, how you respond to things. So if you aren't starting out your day and putting God first, and sometimes I just call it the first 15 minutes. And what it does is it gets you in alignment. So when you wake up, you could have a bad dream. You could have thoughts from yesterday. You can have all these different fears speaking, all these different type of things are speaking. So they're there, and the enemy puts them there to get you out of alignment before you even start your day. So when you have a devotional life, it's very important, because when you put God first, he will fight the battles for you. He'll even go before you, and you won't even know battles he has already fought for you for that day. And so it gets you in alignment with God, and so you can begin to work that day. The second thing that's so important that we did is, and that we had to learn through our journey, is my wife and I not only learned to do a devotional life together, but we learned to pray together on an ongoing basis. Anytime we dealt with something, we would go right to prayer. Anytime we felt overwhelmed, we go right to prayer. There's something powerful when a couple prays together. If you're a single mom out there and everything, find someone to pray with you. Find an intercessor. Find someone to agree with. But those two things are key to everyday living. I just find people, it doesn't matter if you're a special needs parent. You know, mental health is bigger than special needs if you want to look at it. So everybody deals with mental health, and people are dying on the vine. And a lot of them are dying on the vine because they're trying to do it within their own strength rather than God's strength. So if you don't start out your day with your devotional life and you don't learn those principles of praying together, you're carrying it on your own. You're going to have to navigate that day on your own. And I've done both. And I know when I'm out of alignment, and it's when I don't put God first. So it's crucial.
Yeah, it is so good. Okay, as I go in for landing, what would you say, what advice would you give, what encouragement would you give to parents who are maybe feeling a little isolated, a little overlooked, a little unseen?
You know, right now, there are more resources for parents than ever before. And we've never had resources like we do right now, and where we are able to connect. It's kind of like the body of Christ right now. You know, I've watched our church, which our church is a larger church, and that's been God's, that's what God's destined every church. You know, he's given every church a gift and stuff like that. But I've watched God use different churches through social media and through connecting in different ways. And we're reaching more people than we've ever reached before. So what you need when you feel isolated, when you feel overlooked, is you need connection. You need relationship. You need to get out of your hole and get into relationship with other people. It doesn't have to be intense. You need encouragement during that time. And so what I would encourage you to do, we have a thing called the Champions Family Group that we launched, and you're a part of that. And I'm watching families go on there, and every day you can get a devotional. Every day you can get a declaration that you can speak over yourself and your family. Every day you're going to get some type of segment that's going to help you and encourage you. That is crucial during this time of isolation. The second thing that I would do is begin to find people you can connect with that can walk on this journey with you, that maybe have a similar situation. Maybe their child's 5 to 6 years old, and it's kind of like right in that stage, and they're dealing with the same diagnosis or different things like that. Well, now with these things that are provided out there, you can build that relationship, you can build that connection. And so I think you have to get connected spiritually, and then I think you have to get connected relationally. And that will begin to shift how you're looking at things, how you're viewing things, how you feel isolated, how you feel covered. Because if you don't, this is going to be, you've heard the coat of heaviness. This is like the overcoat of heaviness. If you let it, it's like a double coat. And so, but we've got responses. We're doing online services. This is another way you connect. I mean, there's so many resources now, Michelle, wherever you live, that you can get connected with, and not just with Champions Club. You guys can definitely check that out with championsclub.org, but there's a lot of different churches, different organizations are doing some tremendous things.
Yeah, really. Oh. Craig, I won't take any more of your time. Our time's up, but I just want to say thank you. That was so much gold in such a short period of time. So I just honor you and Sam. You are our heroes, and we love following your journey. We love Champions Club. We have so much love and so much respect for you guys and the whole team. So thank you for living out your life, and thank you for walking out this incredible journey that I know has a lot of ups and downs, but seeing you and Sam that are a few years, I won't say too many years, but a few years ahead of us, it just gives us so much hope and encouragement, and it inspires us so much that it really influences the way that we parent our children. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Well, you inspire me, Michelle. Both you and Joseph, you've been incredible parents. You have a tremendous calling upon you guys' life, and I just want to tell you, you're a great mom.
Thank you.
You really are. And I want to tell all those moms out there, you're a great mom. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not doing enough. You're doing your very best. Now let God do the rest.
Yeah. Amen. Awesome. Craig, enjoy the rest of your day, and
all right,
we'll be in touch soon.
All right. Thanks, Michelle.
All right. Thanks, Craig. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for next week's episode of Zoom Out.